Okay, so it's recording.
Good morning. I'm Pat Hurst, a member of the Worship Committee for UU Catskills. Our minister is the Reverend Dr. Leonisa Artizzoni. This service is a recreation of most of the live service given on November the 15th. We were unable to video the service that day and have recreated most of it here. We welcome friends, guests, and members to our online service, whoever you are, whomever you love. Wherever you are in your life's journey, you are welcome here. At UU Catskills, we are a welcoming congregation for the LGBTQ community. We affirm that Black Lives Matter. We are a congregational affiliate of the Ulster Immigration Defense Network, and we are active voices in the effort to address climate change. Unitarian Universalism is a liberal religious faith that carries no creed and welcomes all seekers. We are guided by 7 principles and 6 sources that encompass the many ways that we come to know and understand the world, the universe, and the divine. So welcome to UU Catskills. Let us join together in creating a sacred space for our worship together. If you have a chalice, please light it as I light mine. We light this chalice in grateful, loving community. Even in the darkest of times, may its flame light paths to courage, justice, and hope. Please join me in our affirmation. May we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love to all living beings. May we know once again that we are not isolated, but connected in wonder and joy to mystery and miracle in the universe, in this community, and in each other. The theme for this service is choosing love over fear. For our opening words, I will read an excerpt from When You Don't Choose Love, You Choose Fear, an article by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and David Kessler. If you could literally reach into yourselves and remove all your fears, every one of them, how different would your life be? Probably very different. This is what the dying learn. Being close to death helps us see the different life that is possible, and that vision takes the rest of our fears away. Unfortunately, by the time the fear is gone, most of us are too sick or too old to do those things that we would have done before had we not been afraid. Thus, one lesson becomes clear. We must transcend our fears while we can and still do those things we dream of. To transcend fear, though, we must move into love, happiness, anxiety, joy, resentment. We have many words for the many emotions we experience in our lifetimes, but deep down at our core, there are only 2 emotions, love and fear. All positive emotions come from love. all negative emotions from fear. From love flows happiness, contentment, peace, and joy. From fear comes anger, hate, anxiety, and guilt. It's true that there are only two primary emotions, love and fear, but it's more accurate to say that there is only love or fear, for we cannot feel these two emotions together at exactly the same time. They're opposites. If you're in fear, you're not in a place of love. When you're in a place of love, you cannot be in a place of fear. We have to make a decision to be in one place or the other, and we must make this choice continuously in order to nourish our souls and drive away fear, just as we eat to nourish our bodies and drive away hunger. Our hymn this morning is Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear by Daniel Charles Damon. There is a takeaway from this song, that is, love needs an invitation. Love just doesn't barge in. We have to invite it in. So the words are on the screen, and please join Rob Becker, who will be leading us in singing.
Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open. Love knocks and waits for us to hear, to open and invite. Love longs to quiet every fear and seeks to set things right. Love offers life in spite of foes who threaten and condemn. Embracing enemies, love goes the second mile with them. Love comes to heal the broken heart, to ease the troubled mind. Without a word, love bids us start, to ask and seek and find. Love knocks and enters at the sound of welcome from within. Love sings and dances all around and feels new life begin.
Our Not for Children Only this morning will be read by Paula Sibley.
TroCare is an agency of the Irish Catholic Church committed to the challenges of poverty and injustice in the developing world. In 2018, TroCare sponsored a Poetry Ireland competition with the theme, Until Love Conquers Fear. Submissions were from children through adults, and the selected poems were published in a collection. Here are two of them. The first is by Rihanna Lawrence. She was 12 when she wrote this poem in the primary senior category. Love. Love is a nice feeling. Love helps the people who are not healing. Love is your oxygen, and fear is your smoke. Spread love like chocolate. Spread it on your toast. Fear is a nightmare, and love is a dream. Love is music, and fear is a siren. Love is bigger than our galaxy, and fear is deeper than your soul. Everyone should love. It's more precious than gold. The second poem is by Abby B. Yalwyn. Born in Ireland, she was 10 years old when she wrote this poem in the primary junior category. She loves nature and animals and sees love and fear through this lens as the earth and a fox. The fox. Fear looks like 4 prowling paws, a small sniffing snout, black eyes that are dull with hunger. It lurks in the street, hunting for food, hunting for hope. Love grows in the heart of the earth. When the fox catches the scent of love, it changes. It grows new fur, fluffy as a cloud, spread over the fox. Love gives the fox food and safety. When love touches it, the fox fills with kindness.
For our offering today, we are sharing our plate with Boys and Girls Club of Ulster County. Their mission is to inspire and enable all youth to lead better lives by providing positive opportunities to develop the qualities needed to become responsible citizens and adults. You will see on your screen that there are several ways to contribute to UU Catskills for our plate this morning. You may donate by texting the number given or by going online to uucatskills.org or by using the phone app Give Plus. You also can mail your donations to our office address. For our offertory, Catherine and Ella Catabiani will sing a cappella, Love Will Guide Us by Sally Rogers.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way. On the road from greed to giving, love will guide us through the hard night.
In his book, My Grandmother's Hands, Reshma Manickam talks about finding a calm, settled body as the foundation for health and for healing of ourselves and for helping others. One of the practices is called Breathe, Ground, and Resource. It is a simple meditation practice to bring you into a feeling of safety and settledness. Let us do this together. Find a comfortable position and close your eyes for a few minutes. Take a few deep breaths. Let your body relax as much as it wants to. Stay in this position. Let's keep our eyes closed. Think of a person, an animal, or a place that makes you feel safe and secure. This may be a person, perhaps your spouse, your partner, close friend, someone living, or someone who has passed on. This safety may be an animal, perhaps a pet, or your totem that you spiritually connect with. This may be a place, your home, perhaps a vacation cabin, a mountain trail that you love. Now imagine that right now, this person or this animal is beside you, or you are in that safe place that you've imagined. Breathe in and breathe out naturally. Let yourself experience that safety and feeling of security for a moment in quietness. Open your eyes and notice how your body feels. Maybe it's safe and a feeling of security. Let this feeling continue as we continue on to reflections and readings. When I started planning this service, my working title was Love is a Medicine for Fear, to explore how our body reacts physically to these emotions. But as I read various things, there emerged a much more powerful message. As our opening words said, there are two basic motivating forces in life, fear and love. When we are afraid, we pull back from life. When we love, we open up. And we have a choice. We can choose to live from a place of love, or we can choose to live from a place of fear. Looking at people who chose love over fear can inspire us in our own lives. We will look at two well-known people who made a conscious choice in how they would live their life. The first is Kim Fonte. You may not know her name, but look at this picture that's on the screen. I'll bet many of you will remember her as a child in this photo from the Vietnam War era. You may have seen the photo the day it ran on the front page of the New York Times, or you may have seen it later. This little girl survived that terrible day and lived to become the woman shown in the smaller photo. Paula Sibley will read her inspiring story.
The Vietnam War was the most unpopular American war of the 20th century. We lost nearly 60,000 Americans and an estimated 2 million Vietnamese between the war years of 1955 and 1975. It was divisive, and even today, some say it was a sin, a blunder, an unnecessary war, while others say that even though we failed, it was a noble effort to try to protect the South Vietnamese from a totalitarian government. One of the most enduring images of the war is a June 8, 1972 photograph of 9-year-old Kim Phuc Von Thi fleeing her South Vietnamese village. She is running with arms flung away from her body. After the village was hit with napalm, she had ripped off her burning clothes. She is screaming because of the napalm searing her back and left arm. Napalm sticks to its victims, burning through layers of skin and muscles. This Pulitzer Prize-winning photograph ran in the New York Times the very next day, after editors had been at first hesitant because of the nudity. Years later, Kim Phuc would say, "Napalm is the most terrible pain you can imagine. Water boils at 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Napalm generates temperatures of 1,500 to 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit." Unconscious, she was taken to Saigon Hospital, where the doctors determined she was a hopeless case. Napalm burns, and their cases never seemed to survive. She was placed outside the hospital to die in a hut that had been designated as the children's morgue. Her parents searched for 3 days and never giving up hope to find their child before they found her body with faint stirrings. She was miraculously saved. The Vietnamese Communist government made use of her story, and she became a symbol known as the Napalm Girl. As a young adult studying medicine, she was removed from the university and was paraded in front of cameras and sent on tours for propaganda purposes. Due to constant pain, she considered suicide, but in 1982, she found hope in a chance introduction to the Christian New Testament, and she began to learn of love and forgiveness. Soon thereafter, she was granted permission to study in Cuba, where she met another Vietnamese student, soon to be her husband. They married in 1992. On the way to their honeymoon in Moscow, they left the plane during a refueling stop in Gander, Newfoundland, and asked for political asylum in Canada, which was granted. Resettled in Canada, she tried to rebuild her life and start anew, but she felt unease, with nightmares interrupting her sleep. In her memoir, Fire Road, published in 2017, she wrote, "For many years, I had lived in outright fear, knowing that I was always within 2 or 3 days' time of being detained by communist minders. The incessant guardedness left me cynical and exhausted, and I had simply had enough. I determined in my heart that I would no longer live like that, always fretful over the days and what they might hold, always fearing the worst. I went to my husband and said that I would no longer live in fear, that I would practice the courage that Jesus promises his followers through the scriptures. I recounted the idea that we are no longer slaves to fear because we have been adopted into the very family of God. I will stop running from my fears, from my picture, from my past. Starting now, I refuse to hide." The following morning, I awoke with fresh resolve, determined to simply live my life. The couple now lives near Toronto and has 2 children. She became a Canadian citizen in 1997. Kim Fook has been named a UNESCO Goodwill Ambassador. She has been awarded several honorary doctorate degrees, including an honorary doctorate of law from York University for her work to support child victims of war around the world. She credits her faith and her freedom from fear with healing the psychological trauma of living over 40 years, being known as in the world as the Napalm Girl. She wrote, "My faith in choosing a life of love instead of fear is what has enabled me to forgive those who had wronged me, no matter how severe those wrongs were."
Thank you, Paula. Now, let's look at Nelson Mandela, who lived his life in South Africa. His life was very different, but he had to make the same choice as Kim Fook Bonti. She found strength to transform her life through her religious faith. He found strength outside of a religion, alone in his prison cell. Peter Criswell will read his inspiring story.
Nelson Mandela was a revolutionary, political leader, and philanthropist. Imprisoned for 27 years, he would go on to lead a nation, change lives, and inspire countless people along the way. Nelson Mandela was a revolutionary, political leader, and philanthropist. Imprisoned for 27 years, he would go on to lead a nation, change lives, and inspire countless people along the way. Given the birth name Rolihlahla Mandela, he was born in 1918 in a small village in what is now South Africa. On his first day of primary school, his teacher gave him the name Nelson, a Christian name easily pronounced by British colonials of the day and in accordance with custom. The country was rooted in a history of colonization and slavery. Dutch and British white settlers had historically viewed Black South Africans as a natural resource to be used, and in turning the country from a rural society to an industrial one. He grew up listening to the elders tell story of his ancestors and their valor during the wars of resistance, and he dreamed of making his own contribution to the freedom struggles of his people. As a young man, he became involved in political activities and joined the African National Congress, the ANC, dedicated to Black resistance. In 1948, apartheid, or separateness, came to South Africa, adding to the burdens imposed by white supremacy. The Black population, a majority in the country, would be kept under the thumb of a small minority of whites. By the 1960s, the resistance was in turbulent times, and the ANC would be banned. Nelson Mandela was an angry young man during these years, and he would come to see nonviolence protests as ineffective. Looking for stronger actions, he and others within the ANC turned to armed resistance instead. The fight against apartheid would begin utilizing guerrilla warfare and sabotage bombing. In 1964, Mandela, along with 7 others, were convicted of sabotage and treason and were sentenced to life in prison. During the 1980s, he was denounced by the US President Ronald Reagan and by Britain's Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher as a terrorist. He was branded a communist and was placed on the US terrorist watch list. He was reviled as the antithesis of everything Americans hold dear. At the same time, the world was slowly awakening to the suffering of South Africans under apartheid rule. And while Mandela suffered behind bars, his message had never been louder. As anti-apartheid rallies grew, so did awareness of Mandela's struggle for freedom for Black South Africans. His message was so powerful that a protest song named Free Nelson Mandela became a legendary anthem worldwide. Feeling the international pressures, the government offered to release Mandela under the conditions that he would not engage in political activities once free. He refused, saying, "Only free men can negotiate, prisoners cannot. Your freedom and mine cannot be separated." He rejected at least 3 conditional offers of release. In February 1990, the president of South Africa, Willem de Klerk, lifted the ban on the ANC and released Mandela. The day of his release, Mandela walked out of prison hand in hand with Winnie, his wife of 32 years, his full head of hair now gray, and he walked stiffly but unbent. Thinner than he was in the last picture published of him, he looked less like the firebrand of the 60s and more like the elder statesman he was about to become. He was 72 years old. Finally, at 8 o'clock in the evening, he appeared on the balcony of Cape Town's City Hall to speak to the crowd dancing in the square below him. He began to speak, but his first public words as a free man were drowned out by the roar of the crowds. "Comrades and fellow South Africans, I greet you all in the name of peace, democracy, and freedom," said Mandela. "I stand here before you not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people." Today, the majority of South Africans, black and white, recognize that apartheid had no future. It has to be envisioned by our decisive mass action. We have waited too long for our freedom. The New York Times on this day wrote, "Although he has spent more than half his adult life in jail, Mr. Mandela will emerge in a position that many South Africans have equated with that of Mr. de Klerk, the country's head of state. When he walks out of prison, Mr. Mandela will do so as the virtually uncontested leader of millions of South African blacks." In 1993, the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded jointly to Mandela and de Klerk for their work for the peaceful termination of the apartheid regime and for laying the foundations for a new democratic South Africa. ANC would win the election in 1994, and Mandela, as its leader, would be president of South Africa from 1994 to 1999. He was the country's first black head of state and the first elected in a fully representative democratic election. In his inaugural speech, Mandela heralded the country's re-entry into the world stage as a rainbow nation at peace with itself and the world. The transition formally turned South Africa into a democracy, allowing blacks not only into polling booths, but also into the corridors of power. The abolition of apartheid remains the biggest legacy of Nelson Mandela. However, forgiveness was his biggest influence on the future of the new South Africa. It was his personal determination that anger over the crimes of the past, including his 27 years as a political prisoner, should not motivate future laws and actions. Key to this was his establishment of a Truth and Reconciliation Commission that investigated historic human rights violations and gave vent to grievances. Nelson Mandela sought remembrance rather than revenge in response to injustices under apartheid rule. He understood that the key to moving forward as a nation was understanding and learning from its troubled past. In 2009, the United Nations declared that July 18th, Mandela's birthday, would be a worldwide day of community service known as Nelson Mandela International Day. If you're wondering if he was ever removed from U.S. terrorism watch list, he was under President George W. Bush in 2008. Mandela was revered by the world until his death in 2013. The story of Nelson Mandela's transition from perceived terrorist to president of a multiracial South Africa is a powerful and thrilling one. But Mandela's achievement was not just a political one. It involved a personal transformation that has helped inspire millions of people. He was not a saint or a Superman. He had his human failings. He started his adult life as an angry young man. He even agreed that his enemies were correct to call him a terrorist. For most people, 27 years in prison would be crushing. Most would be consumed by resentment or hell-bent on revenge. For Mandela, nearly 3 decades as a political prisoner were transformative. He entered prison as an angry young man, full of fear, and walked out as a wise old man full of love. How did such a miraculous transformation come about? He said himself he was never a member of any organized religion. Some say Mandela must have transformed himself through his personal meditations and contemplation. Mandela himself said, "You may find that the cell is an ideal place to learn to know yourself." Mandela had many years in the prison cell to focus on the big questions of life. Who am I? What is this universe? And how do I fit in? Mandela's behavior and what he and others have written and said about him suggests that he engaged in deep exploration of these fundamental questions. Mandela showed evidence of having read widely across spiritual traditions, and he made references to some of these readings in his speeches and publications. He cited one poem he claimed to have sustained him and helped him to endure the agony of prison. The poem Invictus by William Ernst Henley was said to have been recited by Mandela and to other prisoners, and he said he was empowered by its message of self-mastery. The last verse reads, "It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Mandela's behavior when he walked out of prison showed not only that he did understand and cherish the message in this poem, but he lived it. His personal mastery is best exemplified by his unquestioning forgiveness of those who tortured him and took 27 years of his life. Mandela must have thought deeply in prison about future possibilities for his country. He came to the conclusion that the divisions could not be healed without forgiveness and reconciliation. True liberation must involve white as well as black. In his autobiography, Mandela said, "If you want to make peace with your enemy, you have to work with your enemy. Then he becomes your partner." He went on to say, "No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate. If they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite." Mandela himself said that as he walked through the gates of prison, he looked back and decided to leave bitterness, hatred, and feelings of revenge behind the prison walls, because if he did not, he would remain a prisoner of his own mind. In prison, over those long years, Mandela chose love over fear. Bitterness, hate, and revenge had no place in his new world.
Thank you, Paula and Peter, for those readings. Now Peter will lead us in singing "Standing on the Side of Love." Please join in. The words will be on the screen.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. Sometimes we corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are standing on the side of love, hands joined together as hearts beat as one, emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are standing on the side of love. We are standing on the side of love.
Thank you, Peter. Our closing words are from the New Testament, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 1 through 3 and 13. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I can give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Behold, there are only three things that will last: faith, hope, and love. And the greatest of these is love. Let us extinguish our chalice. Together, let's sing our benediction. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Before leaving, I want to thank our technical host today, Kathy Kastner, and her co-host, Tom Hackett. Thank you.